Let's welcome in the CEO of CrossFit, Don Faul. Don, thanks so much for doing this, man. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me.
You are coming up, before we get into the stuff that recently happened, but you're coming up on your 1 year in your current position. What has that last year kind of been like for you as far as like surprises, things that have gone well, things that maybe you didn't go so well, but just give us sort of the 1 year looking back retrospective here.
Oh gosh, how much time do we have? I think it's one of those classic things where it feels like I started yesterday and it feels like I've been here a decade at the same time. It's hard to believe that the games are almost upon us. That was my first week last year. It's been amazing. I'd say, I came into the role obviously incredibly excited, inspired about the opportunity, about what was possible. And with candidly a full recognition that we had some pretty meaningful challenges, as an organization, as a community, after having gone through a number of years with some meaningful changes and adversity. And, I'd say looking back a year in, both of those are true, albeit I'd say more extreme. I am more optimistic, more excited about the opportunity we have, in part because I've gotten a chance to see it firsthand, in part because we've got some really awesome momentum on a bunch of places. And at the same time, I think I have a new appreciation for how challenging some of this is. I was telling someone the other day, change at CrossFit within our community is really hard, and it takes time and it takes an investment for lots of good reasons. But I think that's one of the big takeaways for me. And as we think about path forward for us now and the opportunity we have, I think that means being better at that, being better at change, and really understanding what it takes to do that well, and build the trust and earn the trust of the team, but also build and earn the trust of the community as well, because both of those are essential if we're going to achieve what's in front of us.
You mentioned the challenges, and a lot of times, the challenges coming in look a lot different once, boots are on the ground and you're in the thick of it for a little while. I'm curious, what were the biggest contrasts between some challenges, maybe one in particular, where you thought it was a certain way, ended up being way different, and you felt like it was a big growth point?
I'd say, first and foremost, I'd start with us as a team. I'd gotten a chance coming in to meet a few folks from the team. I knew that the organization had gone through a ton of change over the previous years. I knew we had some extraordinary talent across the team, experience. I had a suspicion that we would also need, like any organization, that you would need to supplement that talent with some different perspective, experience, leadership. And, I think coming in, I underestimated, because I didn't fully grasp some of the history, some of the challenges resident in how we show up and operate. HQ, we were unbelievably siloed in how we worked. We had EDU, we had sport, we had affiliates. Those teams were doing their thing, working incredibly hard, not a lot of coordination, not a lot of collaboration. We weren't showing up with consistency in terms of how we talked to the community. We were making decisions sometimes that were duplicative or at odds. And it took me some time to understand the why behind that. And, it's not that people wanted to be siloed. It was, some things that had happened historically. And so that took us some time as a leadership team to sit down and say, okay, is this an important problem to solve? If so, how do we get there? And how do we build confidence in the team? And how do we give the team surety that the changes we're going to make, because we've got to make some changes, that those changes are going to be good for them individually in their career and the impact that they can have. They're going to be good for the company. And most importantly, that they're going to be good for the community. So, hey, that may mean, for example, letting go of some things that this team used to fully own and handing them over to another part of the organization in service of being able to show up with one voice and being able to show up with consistency. And those things are easy to say and easy to write down on paper. At a human level, that stuff is really hard, particularly given some of the history that we had. So, that's one example that comes to mind. And it took me some time to really appreciate and understand that. And that informs both the changes that we made and how we approached it.
You mentioned momentum. Where do you have momentum right now?
I think we've got momentum a bunch. If we look back at where CrossFit was, where the community was, let's say a year ago. So if we break down the kind of major parts of our business, we start with affiliates. Obvious point, COVID was really hard for our community, obviously. And, by August of last year, I'd say most of our community affiliates were kind of coming out of it. But a lot of questions from our affiliates about the future of HQ, the future of affiliation. What is the value that we get? We had a churn rate of meaningfully over 10%. And, obviously that our affiliate community is the foundation of everything we do. And so if we don't have confidence in the value that they're getting and their confidence in the brand, we've got some real meaningful challenges. So that was one challenge we had. Second piece, on the education front, we were not seeing the type of engagement and participation in some of our core education products. So if the affiliates are the foundation of our community, our coaches are what bring CrossFit to life, and making sure that we continue to have the very best coaches on the planet is essential as well. And that requires participation and up-leveling education and giving our coaches a chance to invest in their craft. And that trend wasn't moving in a good direction either. Our financials, we had gone from go back a bunch of years pre-COVID. We were not in a great spot. We were not on a trend that would set us up to make the types of investments in the future of the community that we needed to. And so that was priority number one for all of us. And actually, look, the last piece I'd say that underpins all of this is the team. Extraordinarily talent. Morale was shaky. We had a ton of leadership turnover, a lot of questions from the team about where we're going. And is it a future that we can be excited about, that we believe in? Is it a future that represents where we came from, or are the priorities different? And so if we talk about momentum now, just 6 months later, end of Q1, our affiliate team has been just killing it, hustling. We've rolled out a bunch of different products for affiliates. Our affiliate retention now is the best it's been in over a decade. So our retention in the community is incredible. And I'll tell you, having had a chance to spend a lot of time out in the community, the tone and sentiment of the questions and comments and feedback that we're getting from the community. I was in Portland this past weekend, night and day from where it was just 6 months ago. On the education front, participation, if we look at where we're trending now coming into the first half of the year and exit the year, we're on a path to hit our goals. We're looking at now how we can invest to kind of raise the bar and raise the level of education, something that candidly would have been really tricky 9 months ago. And then the team, we've got more work to do on this front, but the team has come such a long way. And this team is so resilient. So, I talked about being siloed, the level of coordination and cooperation now that's happening across the team. People are working together. We're showing up with a more coherent and consistent voice. And our pace of execution and the rigor with which we're thinking through what we're doing and why and what the impact is has come up meaningfully. We got a long way to go, no question, but across a bunch of those scenarios, we have a lot of momentum. Didn't talk about sport. I know we're going to talk a bunch about sport, but lots of nice momentum there and lots of opportunity there as well.
Yeah, I mean, in touching on one thing you mentioned in there was future investments. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but at some point, do you have any sense of what some of those future investments are that you are trying to plan for now?
Yeah, 100%. Should we just jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, totally.
Sure. So let's start with, when I think about, look, in the long run, one of the things that we did at the tail end of this year and refined was make sure we were really crystal clear on what we were all working towards. So 6-7 year, we talked a little bit about, hey, 2030, where do we want to be? And if you boil it down to its basic essence, we want to make sure we're having a bigger impact in the world through CrossFit. So, this community had an incredible impact on the world in the last 20 plus years, but we're not done. We want to reach more people. We want to have a more profound impact on their life. And if we talk a lot about like the state of society today and some of the trends around health, from physical health to mental health to social health, loneliness, et cetera. We talk about the world needs CrossFit more than ever. So that's the North Star. How do we reach more people? Now, getting there fundamentally for us, that comes back to a number of priorities that we're working with. The first is, how do we do a better job communicating and shaping our brand? We all know, the CrossFit's for anyone. We know that if you've got the will, the mentality, if you show up and put in the work, that CrossFit can have an impact on your life. But 50% of the folks who we think are eligible, who have that will, don't perceive CrossFit that way. They think it's dangerous. They think it's intimidating. They think you have to be super fit to try it out. So there's a bunch of work we're doing in service of that. On the media and marketing side, doing more of what you saw early in the year around Magic of CrossFit. We now have a coaches campaign. We're also doing a bunch of work on one of the things that we learned in Q1 of this year is, hey, we can get people to CrossFit.com, but when they get there today, the experience is a little bit of a mess. We haven't done a great job of really holding their hand. Ultimately, we want to hand them off to an affiliate in their local area where they can start that journey. Today, that's too hard. And so we're working really hard now on changes to .com that takes someone who is interested in CrossFit and hands them off to an affiliate. We're going to launch an updated version of our affiliate map. It's been some time. We think that's a really essential part of that. We're going to give our affiliates the opportunity to tell a little bit more and show a little bit more about their affiliate. And in that, we're going to highlight the affiliates who are making the investment in the things that drive the best quality experience for our members. So that's going to be level of education. So if you as an owner have invested, if your coaches have invested in your L2 and your L3, we're going to show that on the map because we think that's great for your members. We want to reward you for that investment with more people so you can grow your membership. So big category of work that we're doing to get more members in the front door of our affiliates and double down on the work that we're doing there. On the affiliate side, our number one priority right now for affiliates, so if we want to reach a lot more people and have a bigger impact in their life, we need a really strong, healthy, sustainable affiliate ecosystem that not only can deliver an amazing experience on the floor, but also we need to help our affiliates build great sustainable businesses. And when we dug into the first half of the year, we had a lot of affiliates doing an amazing job, delivering a great experience, but struggling on the business side, kind of barely getting by. And so we're making a much bigger investment in the tools and resources they can use to run a world-class business and deliver a world-class experience on the floor. And so we've rolled out a starter kit for new affiliates. We have a new mentor program we're rolling out. We're investing in some work specifically around lead gen for local marketing and making that easier for our local affiliates to get people in the front door. So more investments there, and we're holding ourselves accountable actually to increasing affiliate revenue. So we've had to do some work so we could actually measure this, but we've taken steps now where we can say, we're going to roll out all of these tools. At the end of the day, they need to deliver value. They need to deliver value by helping these affiliates reach more people, make more money, build a sustainable business. Finally, we're making some investments on the education side. So two big themes there. One is when we look at, we know we have the best coaches in the industry, no question, full stop. But we believe we can raise the bar even more and put even more distance between us and everyone else. And in doing so, have an even bigger impact on people. I was at this affiliate gathering in Portland this weekend, and I asked all the affiliates in the room, I said, hey, raise your hand right now if you would feel 100% confident recommending a close friend or family member to walk into any one of our affiliates anywhere around the world, knowing they're going to have an amazing experience. And I can get a single hand raised. And that doesn't mean we don't have great affiliates. That means we can do better. And so our job is at HQ, we're going to step a little bit more into one, making sure you've got the tools you need to deliver that experience. And then two, holding the community ecosystem accountable for that. And if we're going to, because we know that if one of our members, one prospect, someone who was thinking about CrossFit walks into an affiliate and has a bad experience with CrossFit, that doesn't just hurt that affiliate. It doesn't just hurt that member. That impacts the entire brand. And so we are responsible and accountable for that. Part of what we're doing on that front is raising the bar in terms of what we expect in terms of education. So to give an example, we all know the L1 is extraordinary. It's amazing. We also all know that you don't walk out of the L1 an expert in coaching. It is the start of your journey. And we have too few coaches today who have taken meaningful steps beyond that. And that a big part of that is our fault and our responsibility. We think the vast majority of our coaches should have their L2 at a minimum and should be continuing to work. So we are looking at things to make it easier to access that, to raise the bar, to reward affiliates who are making the investment in education because we know it's better for our members, we know it's better for the community, and we know it's better for the brand.
Okay, there's a lot in there I want to talk about. So let's start with the affiliate thing, because I think what makes CrossFit so unique is that it is there's no franchise model. It's like every gym that you walk into
Correct.
they have separate rules, and you often hear about, and I'll just use Orange Theory as an example. People think that's bigger because there's uniformity. You recognize it every time you see it. Whereas you could drive by 2 of those gyms and 10 CrossFit gyms, and you wouldn't even know you drove by 10 CrossFit gyms.
Mm-hmm.
So where is the line where CrossFit HQ comes in and says, all right, this is where we want to exert a little more control and have a little more uniformity, and still allowing affiliates to run their own business for their own communities?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked this, because one of our biggest assets is the fact that we've got these entrepreneurial affiliate owners who got into it because obviously they have huge passion for changing lives in CrossFit, but also they love the autonomy they have to run their own business. And on top of that, we've got this incredible diversity. No two affiliates are the same. That's amazing. There is no other fitness business that looks like that. That is not what we're talking about when it comes to quality. You can have an extraordinarily high level of quality and your gym can look fundamentally different. There's also a huge difference between, our model here and our approach is not to exert control, but rather give our owners the tools and reward owners who are delivering an extraordinary level of quality. So we want to preserve the entrepreneurial spirit. We want to preserve the autonomy that our owners have to understand their community and understand what works best and experiment with things. At the same time, we need to make sure that we have a clear articulation of what quality means in terms of the level of the experience on the floor, in terms of how you treat new members who walk in the front door. These things really matter. If someone reaches out to you, are you following up with things? These are things that will help you build a better business, that influence the way that people perceive the brand, and we think can be a real win-win. And we think we can do that while preserving the autonomy that our owners have to bring it into the gym every single day. And that's, admittedly, that's something we have to thread, but that's something we're thinking a lot about, because that's essential and really important in how we think about what makes our ecosystem and what makes our owners so powerful.
What does the reward system for affiliates that are doing it the right way look like? Because, it's hard for me to imagine beyond maybe, shining a light on them more frequently and pumping them up as, the kind of startling examples of the brand. But what other ways maybe have you guys ideated around that reward type system?
Yeah, so I'll acknowledge we're still pretty early in this, and I'll tell you, we haven't figured it out yet. I'd say today there's probably a, call it weak but organic, right? Where you have folks who walk in and they walk out and they tell people like either, hey, that affiliate, not great, or CrossFit, worst case, CrossFit sucks. I had a bad experience with it. I think there are things that we can do in a number of areas, first and foremost around, I think we really believe that the level of education, the level of experience of your coaches is a great proxy. It's not perfect, but it's a good proxy for the quality experience you're going to have on the floor. And of course, in any environment, I'm sure we have some L1s who are extraordinary, and I'm sure we have some L3s who could need some more support. But by and large, the investment you make in a coach and furthering your education translates largely to a better experience for the member on the floor. So that's one way. So, hey, through something like the affiliate map, for example, for those affiliates and coaches who have made the investment to up-level the education, we can use that in exposing that to members to influence their choice. So if they've got X number of affiliates in a local area that they're choosing from, hey, I'm going to go to the one that has the most educated coaches, or hey, I'm going to go to the one that has a certified, a kids certification, because that's really important to me. So we think that's a great way. Still the owner's choice. They can choose whether or not they want to invest. And that translates to, we think, a better experience for members. That's a big piece that we're starting with. There's probably some stuff over time that we'll think about. There are some ecosystems that look at customer reviews. So that may be something we look at and experiment with. That's not perfect. So we got to be really thoughtful about that. What we also want to look like over time. So we've been trying to take some steps to better understand what member behavior looks like. And so what is the average lifetime? What does retention look like for an individual gym? What does retention look like for an individual coach, actually? And that's the type of stuff over time that the very best coaches should have the best conversion of new members. So the folks who show up, does the coach welcome them, make them feel comfortable, introduce them really well to the community, to the overall CrossFit ecosystem? If they're intimidated, help them understand how to scale. And then over time, is that coach building a strong relationship with its members, delivering a great experience? That should translate over time to phenomenal retention for our members. maybe taking it a step further, and I'm getting a little pie in the sky here. It's going to take us time, but fundamentally, we're about results, right? That's the promise we make. CrossFit works better than anything else. Imagine a world down the line where we can help owners and coaches understand the impact they're having on their members. So if we can start over time to track the progress that folks are making in their fitness journey, can we tie that back to owners and reward and incentivize and support the affiliates and the coaches who are doing the best job with it? So again, we got a lot to figure out. We're early in this, but those are some things that we've started to think about.
You said you talked about communicating and shaping the brand. So this is where, obviously, being in media, we pay a lot of attention to this. And I always say, like, just because I don't understand something doesn't mean it's wrong. I just might need someone to explain it to me. So as far as communicating your story, and I'll use this as an example. You guys have the CrossFit podcast. Chase Ingram's on it. Adrian Conway. They're two very well-known figures. Very, very well versed in the CrossFit methodology. Great coaches. And they have an opportunity, to have guests on and to get news out and to talk more about just sport, but also, the affiliate side and the business side of things. CrossFit has, two main YouTube channels. They have the Games channel that has, I think, like 900,000 subscribers. And then they have the CrossFit Proper channel that I think has 1.7 million. So between the two of them, you're close to 3 million, like 2.6, 2.7 million. But that CrossFit podcast has its own channel that has 4,000 subscribers. So, like, why isn't that content elevated to, the CrossFit channel and the Games channel, where the odds of more are obviously more people have a chance to see it, and then by extension get that in front of people that who might be interested in CrossFit, and they can say, look, listen to this guy talk about what it is, and get that person into affiliate. So that's just one of those things I don't understand.
Yeah, and I specifically, I'll have to follow up on that because I don't know the why specifically on that. What I will say is, I think broadly this kind of question is one of our bigger opportunities, an area that I personally, if I look at and assess myself over the course of the past year, one of the areas I've not done a good enough job of. I don't think I have done a sufficiently good job of communicating in a really clear, thoughtful sort of way to our core customers. We have a lot of channels. We produce a lot of media. We speak in a lot of different ways. We have a lot of different types of stories, and we have a lot of goals in service of, like, what are we trying to achieve with our media and marketing? And our team has done a fantastic job. All the outcomes I spoke to before, open participation, affiliate growth, affiliate usage, all of those come on the back of work that's being done by our media and marketing team to drive attention to. At the same time, if I zoom back out and think about, are we doing an exceptional job of clearly communicating to our core constituents in a cohesive sort of way that speaks to our members, that speaks to our coaches, that speaks to our affiliate owners, and then the broader ecosystem? I think we've got the opportunity to do a better job there. I'll give you an example. On the affiliate side, we have done a ton of work over the last 12 to 18 months. And when I go out, I feel like I talk to kind of 50% of owners who I talk to will say, holy cow, you guys have done so much work. It's amazing. I go to the affiliate portal. There are so many resources there. And 50% have no idea they exist, or some version of that. And I think there's two reasons for that. One, I think we are coming from a place where there wasn't an expectation that we were doing a heck of a lot for owners. So a lot of owners got used to doing my thing. I love that. I'm on my own. I'm not expecting a lot. The second is I have not done a good enough job of a steady drumbeat of clear communication at the right level through the right channels to our owners, so we can bring them along. We had this, I mentioned before, this summit in Portland, and I think most of our owners walked out with a very different, optimistic view. It should not take an in-person gathering for us to communicate that. And so, I think, Sean, to your question, we got to do a better job on this. I need to do a better job on it. And those types of questions you answer should be really clear in how we're thinking about it.
So what would you say is kind of the broader approach then to communication and media for the company? I'll preface this by saying, in the early years, CrossFit was pretty much the solo source of information regarding anything involving the community: training, education, affiliates, the sport, pop culture and media, anything that surrounds that in the ecosystem. They were the juggernaut. From 2018 on, that changed, became more decentralized. In many ways, if CrossFit wanted to get back to that, they were the years from 2018 on, you're kind of arming your competition in some way. And all these things were a byproduct of that as well. Where would you say the current status of the company falls in relation to those two poles, and how you're going to approach media and where you want to communicate now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we are still in transition. And I'd say, I think one of the things that we have to recognize is it's not 2015 anymore, and it's not going to be 2015 again. And there's a lot that has evolved in how people consume content. In the proliferation of social today is fundamentally very different. And we have the benefit of folks like you guys and a lot of others who are doing important work in the ecosystem to tell a story. And I think candidly, we have been figuring out what is our role, how do we partner with the other folks in the ecosystem to make sure that we are really well aligned. And I think we have unnecessarily been at times viewed it as competitive. I don't think it has to be or needs to be. I think honestly, I think all of us benefit from a larger ecosystem. And yes, is part of part of your job, part of other folks' job to hold us accountable, to point out the things where we can do better. Yes, I think that's important and healthy. I think we need to, if we think about where we're going, we need to have a strong independent voice that represents expression of our brand, where we're going, why we're doing things, what the community and the ecosystem can expect. We need to clearly communicate with our customers. They should hear news that matters to them from us first, not from their morning email, from an independent source. And then our job should be to reach out to and support for the folks in the ecosystem who want to tell complementary stories, who want to take a different approach on it. How do we create the conditions where they can do that work in a way that amplifies our message, that reaches different audiences, that helps us grow? We're not there yet. That has taken a mindset shift for us because it's not the way we operated historically. And some of those patterns take some time. We are making some changes for the games, actually, where we're going to have some folks in the community. We're going to bring them in, give them some more access in a way that we might not have done a year ago or 2 years ago, in service of exactly that type of approach. So we got more work to do in clarifying and being really crisp in the role that we want and need to play. And then I really, really I think it's really important for us to partner with other folks in the ecosystem, again, so that they can tell stories that are good for the community in a way that again, I think can be great for the overall, for our members, for owners, and for coaches as well.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like in some ways CrossFit needs to maybe learn how to lead a little bit again, in terms of, one, telling their own story, and two, helping be the battering ram that drives the outer rims of that larger ecosystem to even, deeper and greater reaches as well. And I'm curious, outside of the mindset shift, where do you see the biggest obstacles or the biggest gap between where you are now and where you want to be? Because, you mentioned, independent sources and things like that. That's a very clear example of where CrossFit isn't telling their own story first.
Yeah. So I think there are, so when you say that part of our opportunity is evolving how we lead, I agree 100%. And I'd say this is not specific to just how we think about media and marketing. It's how we show up more broadly in the community and ecosystem. And for a while, I think there was a lot that, hey, we make decisions and we tell everyone else. We're trying across the board now to bring folks in. So a bunch of work we're doing around the games and the sports season. We're bringing folks in now over the last couple of months to say, hey, how do we think about working on this together? Coming back to, the role that we need to play and how we get there. What does it take? I think it's a few things. So one, we've been looking for a leader for our marketing team. That's essential. We've got amazing talent on the team. We have not had that executive for some time now. We've had another member of the team who's been supporting that team, doing an amazing job. We haven't had a full-time leader. Team's been doing the best job that they can, but that has certainly been a challenge for us. We are super close on that front, and we've worked really hard to make sure we find the right person for that role. It's essential. Two, honestly, I think there's a little bit of we've got to have on the partnership front the courage to bring people in and just say, hey, come in, tell the story. We're going to give you access, have at it. And I'll be honest, there's, in some of those cases, a lot of maybe concern, fear about what type of story gets told. And is that a story that's good for us, or is it bad for us? And I think most of the folks in the community want what's best for the community and want what's best for CrossFit. And so I think we're going to have to be willing to show that we're willing to trust and that we're willing to partner. And my belief is over time that I think the product of that will be really positive for us and for the community. And there'll be some times when, like, yeah, we'll get banged up, we'll get criticized a bit, but I think that's the nature of the beast. And I think it's probably good for a healthy community and ecosystem. And then there's some additional work that we need to do in terms of really reevaluating how we express our brand, how we think about the channels that we use, some of the tactics and execution, what type of content we should be creating in service of that, the channels we support and proliferate through. We have some old patterns. Some of them are really valuable. Some of them need to evolve, and we need to rethink some of them. So there's work that's happening there. Nicole Carroll leads brand for us now, and she's been doing some extraordinary work on really architecting and communicating what that looks like. That had been, I think, missing to some extent for some time, which makes a lot of this work really, really hard. So those are some of the things that we have in play, with the goal of in the back half of this year now seeing a meaningful shift forward in that respect.
Let's shift gears. Let's go to sport now, because that's the world we live in. Obviously, the biggest news that's happened over the past month was Justin Berg being let go from a position I think he was in for almost 13 years. Why was that move made?
Yeah, so I'm not going to talk specifically, if it's okay with you guys, about Justin out of respect for him. Other than to say, I mean, you guys both know Justin. Justin dedicated 13 years of his life to CrossFit as an affiliate owner, member of our seminar staff, played a huge role in building what is sport ecosystem today. Wish him absolutely nothing but the best. Very happy to talk about kind of where we're going and what are some of the lessons learned, and what does that look like for sport, if that's helpful.
Sure. Well, then let's start there. What were the lessons learned then, and how do you apply those now moving forward?
Yeah, so I think there are, as we think about the future of kind of sport and where we are, I think for each part of our business, I look back over the last year and there are some things that are really positive that we need to build on. And then there's definitely kind of lessons learned as well. On the sports side, I categorize them in kind of two buckets. First, there is, as we look at the current season and how we execute it, the open, quarterfinals, semis, games, where can we just execute better within the current construct of the season? And so a bunch of good positive stuff this year. Participation grew in the open, good participation in quarter semis as well. The feeling and the vibe at semis was amazing. There's some things I think the team created there in terms of the integration of the community and affiliate owners. That was an amazing step forward. I had a lot of folks talking about how it felt like regionals again in a way that really galvanized the community. Also lots of kind of learnings along each stage as well. So for the open, really looking at, I think at a high level, a couple things. One, how do we just continue to drive better participation? Good news, we had a lot of new people do the open. Bad news is we had a lot of people who rolled off. And so there's work we got to do. The open is an amazing, magical experience. We're not reaching enough of the community yet. And so part of our thesis on that is we can do a better job of partnering with owners, with affiliate owners. Part of that is, some lessons this year around how we think about programming and layout. We got a bunch of data back from this recently from owners. 30% of them said, hey, we can do a better job with that. So we'll look at how do we think about programming through that lens. We've done that, but I think we can get a little better on that front. There are things that we can do to just streamline registration, entering scores, as we get into quarters, judging. Always lots of feedback about judging. There's work we can do to streamline that experience, for sure. And I think we've got to, for quarters in particular, take a really hard look at how we think about delivering a consistent, fair experience with a programming experience that satisfies what we want in terms of assessing level of fitness. And there's some areas I think where there's sometimes a tension between complexity of programming and the difficulty of effectively judging it. And then logistically, there are some things that we can do around the systems that we use to manage that to do a better job. On the semis front, bunch of learnings there. I think similar, there are some things around how we communicate. So we look back, some appeals, some decisions we made. Are there takeaways for us in terms of programming, how we communicate them, how we handle it in the moment that's best in service to supporting the athletes. There are, I think, some lessons for us around how we structure and set up the venues. So we had, for the ones that we ran, we had 2 convention centers, and then we had the arena in Berlin. Very different experiences. The arena in Berlin was phenomenal, great fan experience, great athlete experience. A lot of the logistics that a lot of people may not see. That venue made those logistics much easier. The convention center format is really tricky and really challenging. So there's some learnings for us in terms of next season on that front. And then I'd say broadly, thematically, honestly, it comes back to what we already talked about. I think we can do a better job communicating throughout the season. I think if we look at some of the changes we're making, things like a choice not to live stream an event, a choice around changes we're making in format or setup. I think we can do a better job of communicating earlier, communicating more clearly, make sure we communicate the context around it. Why are we doing it? Why do we think it's the best thing? Not everyone's going to agree, but I think most folks, if they understand the why, can at least, it gives them confidence we're thinking it through, versus I think there are times when maybe certain decisions feel ad hoc, don't feel thought through, because we didn't take the opportunity necessarily to communicate those. So again, big opportunity for me personally in doing a better job with that. So that's kind of bucket 1, current format. Bucket 2, as we think about broadly long-term, how do we think about, are there bigger strategic takeaways for sport more broadly? And are there opportunities there to look at the nature of the season and over time think about, are there things that we can do to better support the experience for fans, better support the athlete experience and their ability to manage a season and make money and build a career? Is there an opportunity you can have to get the community more engaged?
And did anything come out of semifinals for that was particularly poignant? Like we have talked about, ad nauseum about potentials for things outside of the season, ways to upgrade the season. And I know there were some ideas being floated around. And I mean, Dave Castro even went on his YouTube channel and kind of discussed a little bit of like the invitational or maybe even something new. So I'm curious, because that's going to pique people's interest immediately. What are maybe some things, even if it's just the early ideas phase, that is even being considered?
Yeah, totally. So ultimately what we want to kind of get to with some of those changes, so if we think about why does sport exist and what does it serve for us, obviously we want to crown the fittest on earth. That's important. And so we want to run a really thoughtful, well-run season that serves and support that. 2, the sport and the season is a really important way of bringing our community together, get them excited, get them connected. So how can we better serve that? It also should be an opportunity for us to reach more people. So how do we reach people who are not in the CrossFit ecosystem today with an experience that is not only fun to watch, but actually makes CrossFit approachable? And there's some challenges and tensions there. We want to support athletes being able to build a real career in this and understand what that looks like and make good money and invest in helping the sport and helping the community grow. So what we got to balance is we also recognize I've got a lot of feedback around changes through the season have a big impact. We've made a lot of changes historically. And so we got to be thoughtful about it. I think we do need to change because I think we can be better, but we got to be thoughtful about how we sequence those and communicate those. So some of the things that we're thinking about are, as Dave mentioned, different types of formats that we can invest in that are a great viewing experience for fans, not only folks who already drink the CrossFit Kool-Aid, who are psyched to sit down for a 6-day extravaganza of dozens of hours of programming, but also the casual sports fan at home who flips on TV and is willing to give us 60 minutes. I don't know that we've cracked that nut yet. And so we're going to experiment with some formats next year to look at, can we create something really dynamic, really engaging, great for the athletes that get to compete and participate, great for our existing community, and great for new members. So we're going to experiment with stuff like that. The other thing that we're thinking about is, sport isn't just for our elite athletes. Core to our methodology, core to the philosophy is sport should be something that every one of us should have access to within the community. And today, in large part from HQ, you get 3 days a year. You get the Open. And it's amazing, but I think there's a lot more that we can do with that. And so Dave is thinking a lot about, we're thinking a lot about what role can we play in giving more of our community the opportunity to experience the joy and connection of sport, of competition? We've had a licensed event program, good start, but I think it can be a heck of a lot better. So we're going to invest in some of that. We're also looking at, in and around sport, how do we tap into the opportunity around media and our athletes to get a lot more eyeballs on CrossFit? So to use the overused example, but powerful one of kind of what Drive to Survive did for F1, is there an opportunity, an example like that for us, where we can create the opportunity for people to create a real deep relationship with our athletes, and maybe the owner and the coach behind that athlete, to draw people in, create that connection throughout the season, give us the opportunity to reach a heck of a lot more people. And if we can do that, that's more fans for the sport, more members for our affiliates. And so we're in conversations with a bunch of those right now as well. And so those are some of the things that we're kind of thinking about. Last thing I'd say is continuing to think about the role for us within the season, and how we partner with other folks in the ecosystem who run and are capable and want to run great events in service of supporting experiences for our elite athletes, for other members as well. So Wadapalooza announced a SoCal location. That's fantastic. That is great for the ecosystem. What can we do to better support that? What can we do to bring them into the fold and help them be successful? So those are some of the other things we're thinking about.
Those all sound great, and I love everything you said there. Obviously, there's a financial component to this. Like you just none of this happens for free, and we've heard for years. This dates back a decade. Like the games lose money. It's not. We can't find a good way to monetize this. How do you monetize, or at least make it make sport not something to where it's it's a huge financial burden, and it's something that, hey, we're making money out of this. We're financially sound here, and we have room now to grow using making sound decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So the good news is that we do not lose money on the games. The games is amazing. We can do better. We're continuing to lean into that. If we zoom out and look at our season financially through a financial lens, the Open's amazing. So, we reach a lot of people, virtual competition, relatively lean in terms of being able to support it, good business for us. So, deliver a great experience for our community, and financially something that can support the rest of the season. The games is also fantastic. Great opportunity to bring a lot of eyeballs, great opportunity for our partners and sponsors, great for our athletes. The in-between is what's hard. The semis is hard. And as you guys know, probably better than me, it costs just as much to run the semis as it does the games. Not quite, but pretty close. So the amount it takes to invest to run a great semifinal event is a big, big undertaking. And by the way, as you guys know, our semis and games depend on a ton of volunteers who show up and work for free because they absolutely love this community so much. And so what we're really focused on is we want to elevate and improve every part of the season. Again, if we can grow the Open, great for our community, great for our owners, great for everybody, great from a business perspective. And that's about how do we think about delivering even more value there. Same thing around the games. How do we continue to take the games to the next level? The core area for us as we think about the business of sport is thinking about the right model for semis. And I'd say the semis for us have costs on two levels. There are the financial costs. There's also the mind share and the time. I mean, you guys are in it. Like, our season does not slow down from the beginning of the Open until the games. It is, for a small full-time team here, they do not get a second to breathe. And they do an incredible job with a really lean staff. That has a cost as well. Those are cycles, time that we can't put into the games, that we can't put into new formats. And so what we got to think about here is how do we figure out and continue to build on the model for semis that makes sense for us and makes sense for our partners. We've got some great partners who run amazing events in the community and ecosystem. I have not been to Torian, but I've heard just extraordinary things about it. And so how do we support folks running great events like that? And how do we show up in a way that makes it financial beneficial for the folks who are running the event, that ensures we deliver an amazing experience consistent with the brand from a judging and programming perspective? How do we maybe think about on the economic side, are there ways that we can share some of the economics with the folks who we partner with to make it financially attractive for them to run some of these events? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is there anything, being tossed around in terms of trying to better improve the financial aspect? Because I think back to, a couple of the things that CrossFit was formerly working close to. Back in 2018, there were offers on the table for exclusive streaming partners, broadcast deals, things like that. That was maybe more of a traditional look at sports in terms of you need a big network deal, and then there's ad revenue and space that comes along with it. And it does feel like in many ways there's been this evolution of how people consume media. So I don't know, and this is maybe outside of our expertise too. Is there any sort of discussion around what that might look like from this new age standpoint and trying to boost the financials without having to put a significant financial investment yourself as an organization?
Well, I think that for us, if I think about, for sport broadly, and then think about, let's take semis, for example, specifically, our long-term goal for semis is not going to build an extraordinarily profitable business. It plays a really, really important role in this season. And I think success for us might be get to a place where it is solid, where we deliver an extraordinary experience, where it's great for the brand, it's great for our partner, it supports the path for athletes, get it to a great place. And then for us, let's focus on the area where we can have the biggest impact for the community. Let's get the Open to a place where it is even more exciting and engaging for our members, for our community, for our affiliate owners. And let's take the games to the next level. And then let's figure out how we can expand opportunities for members to participate in sport. I'd also say, I think, the piece around how we think about viewership, distribution deals, media, the first lens that we're looking at that through today is reaching more people. And so, yes, there's a financial component to it, but if done the right way, we've got a belief that sport can earn us eyeballs, a ton of eyeballs of folks who have the potential to join the community. And I think what we got to figure out is how do we reach as many people as we can? And then when we reach them, how do we show up with a presentation of CrossFit that exposes the highest expression of our sport, but also makes CrossFit approachable to the average person? Like, that's the home run for us. And so we're doing some work in service of that right now.
Final thing that I wanted to talk about is just the business structure of CrossFit right now. And I think that's still somewhat nebulous to your average community member. And there's a board of directors. You work for, you obviously work for the board, and they might be looking through things from a different lens than the community or an affiliate owner is looking through them. So how do the board's goals for the company right now from a business standpoint align with those of your average affiliate owner or community member?
Yeah. So so as context, we do have a board of directors. In 2020, when Glassman sold CrossFit, the majority owners a company called Berkshire Partners. So it's a private equity firm. They sit on our board. We have a number of other board members as well. They're an investment firm. They looked at CrossFit as something that an incredible brand, incredible community that already had a big impact that they thought could be a lot bigger and have a larger impact. They're financially oriented, like straight up. Their job is to make money for their investors. And now, as we think about, I'll be honest, when I was coming into this job a year ago, this was my number one question. For me, my excitement about CrossFit wasn't about what CrossFit could be as a business. It wasn't about its eventual value or market cap. It was, like I think the majority of our community, I was excited to get a chance to work on something that had an impact on my life and that I thought could reach and impact a lot more people. Now, when it comes down to it, I think the good news, so a lot of the time that I spent coming in was, hey, let's get really clear here. What are your expectations as a board? What are your expectations of investors? And to what extent does that align with my 2 cents, our 2 cents as a community on what's best for CrossFit, our existing community, and the community we hope to reach? And the good news is there's really high alignment. So if you think about, if I think about what we're working on right now, we're trying to reach more people impact more lives through CrossFit and have a more profound impact on those folks. We're trying to make sure that we have an incredibly healthy ecosystem of affiliates who are the undisputed leaders in their community. They are bigger, more financially successful, and that the experience they're delivering on the floor to their members is even better than it is today. We're working to make sure we've got fundamentally the best coaches in the world who are trusted resources broadly in helping people in their journey in fitness and health. And we want to build in service of that. We need to deliver clear, sufficient value that allows us to build and invest in a business. And so, that is, when we think about that, if you think about it through the financial lens, what drives enterprise value? If I think as an investor, it's growing the number of people who do CrossFit. It's growing the number of affiliates. It's making sure those affiliates are extremely successful and can deliver that sustainable experience over time. And the more coaches we have engaging in CrossFit education in service of delivering a better experience, all of those things align with building a larger business over time. Now, I'll be totally honest. The timelines aren't always exactly the same. And sometimes there's feedback from the board on, hey, why don't you do this sooner, do that sooner? A big part of my responsibility, our responsibility, is making sure we balance and we clearly articulate, again, in the end state, the goal is the same. Sometimes the point of view on the journey by virtue of making sure that our investors and board really understand what is so unique and special about this community and what it takes to continue to drive the type of passion for CrossFit, the type of engagement from CrossFit. Because if we stray from any of that, if we do something that's off brand, if we do something that's bad for our affiliate owners, if we do something that sells out, quote unquote, all that value disappears. That's not good for our investors. And so my job is making sure we communicate that really well and build a plan that is first and foremost, most importantly, great for our community. And secondarily, also drives amazing returns for our investors as well.
In, kind of digging into that a little bit more, what is the balance, maybe time-wise, percentage-wise, and necessary balance for you in making sure that you don't have that like sellout type moment, essentially translating what the board wants in a way that's meaningful for the community, but also vice versa? It seems like just those two things alone could occupy the entirety of your existence. Because I will say this because if you mention a board of directors to the average CrossFitter, they're like, oh man, these guys in suits that have no idea what we're doing. And that's a scary thing to them.
For sure. Sometimes it feels like the entirety of my existence, I'll be honest. No, it's look, this is and I would say, look, for most folks in my position, no board of directors knows your business and community as well as you do. And part of a leadership team's job, part of my job, is representing that and doing a great job of communicating why a certain path is the right one. And there are definitely times when I disagree with a point of feedback from our board, where they disagree. They look at our plan and path and say, actually, we think you should do X faster than Y, or this thing isn't even on the list. Why aren't you doing it? Those are in the, I'd say 80% alignment, 20% dialogue and debate. And what I'll say is I think our board, with a high degree of confidence, our board understands that CrossFit's really special. And our board understands that CrossFit's really unique. Our board gets this is not a traditional franchise business. They all know that. And honestly, like the first couple of years after their investment, a bunch of this became clear because there's some things that happened that we did that exposed this, right? And we got to make sure we learn from those. We did some partnerships, maybe not the right partnership for us. We made some decisions that may not have been, in the best interest, or we made decisions that might have been good, but we communicated them really poorly. And we feel it, like our community's going to let us know. And so, I really do think most of the time the board gets at a high level we're unique and different. My job is making sure I communicate that. And I totally understand, by the way, that feeling of like, oh shit, financial investor, private equity, they're going to come in and they're going to strangle every ounce of value out of this thing that they can, and then they're going to sell it. And I understand that perspective. Again, that's the thing I was trying to filter for before I took the job. That is not how things go. And the board understands like that doesn't work. That's actually not a viable path. You try to do that with CrossFit, the bottom drops out of this thing. The only path to building that better outcome is by doing it the right way and staying true to who we are and communicating things well. And that doesn't mean we're not going to get it always right. Like there will be things we announce that are probably wrong, unpopular shit. We've had plenty of evidence of that over the course of the past year, but we've got to show the community the intent and the why behind it, and be really good about owning it and moving forward on it.
We reached out to, we have a handful of supporters on Patreon that, you know, our close group of followers that support us. And anytime we have a big interview, we like to, you know, open up the opportunity for them to submit some questions. We have a couple of good ones that I wanted to toss your way. And the first one is from one of our patrons, Rhino. He says, the Army has paid for my L2 and nutrition courses, which I'm very thankful for. I also opened Moose CrossFit, which is a military affiliate for my Minnesota Army National Guard unit. Is there a push from CrossFit to be more aligned with other service branches? And I'll even take that a step further and add something. Is there any other initiatives that are maybe being entertained at this point?
Is Rhino, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Rhino, thank you. Awesome question. So we have been working on over the course of the past 6-9 months, kind of 2 efforts with the U.S. Army. And as a Marine veteran, it pains me that we're not as deeply engaged with the Marine Corps yet, but the Marine Corps is nothing if not stubborn. So we're going to have to pull them kicking and screaming. There's 2 really exciting things with the Army that I think are absolutely extensible to our other services. The first thing we've done is we've worked with the U.S. Army to get continuing education funds in the Army to cover L1, L2. And so hopefully Rhino's gotten a chance to take advantage of that. We've seen amazing demand from soldiers. That's great for them on active duty, and it's a great career path post-transition where they can go out and be coaches, maybe affiliate owners. The second thing we've been working on is in a partnership with the 16th or 18th Airborne Corps in the U.S. Army. So very big units who brought us in to take a look at the work that we can do to help enhance physical readiness and training for soldiers. So we've been working on now, we put a couple thousand soldiers through a new education format so that we created for the Army. Think of it as a kind of a cut down L1, so a 1-day CrossFit fundamentals. And the idea there is we want to empower soldiers, non-commissioned officers or frontline leaders with the fundamentals of CrossFit so they can take ownership for and run physical training, which is how things worked for a very long time in the military, and things have shifted a little bit. And that has been, the thesis is doing so will increase physical readiness across the U.S. Army, which has been a real challenge and in some dimensions been on a decline for some time. And so we are really early. We've been doing that now, like I said, with a couple thousand. We've got about 10, 11 weeks worth of data. And we're actually looking at the impact that our training has on their Army Combat Fitness Score tests. It's really early, but so far really positive trends there. Both of those programs are extensible to other services. So same challenges exist in the Marine Corps, in the Navy, in the Air Force. Same opportunity exists with the continuing education. We have started some work on the administrative side to make scholarship programs available. We want to get this first test with the Army on fitness scores locked in. We want to get the data that is bulletproof, and then we're going to use that to expose to some of the other services.
That's awesome. The next question is probably the one we got the most of. Brad, Jesse, a bunch of people from our cohort asked, what is the single thing that you are most proud of over the last year now that you're about 12 months in? And what is the one thing you're most excited about coming up?
So I think the thing I'm most proud of, I actually had a moment last night. So I mentioned before, we had this affiliate summit up in Portland, and we did one at the beginning of the year. We do them twice a year in each region in the US, and then we'll do summits outside the US as well. Beginning of the year, we talked about, hey, here's our plan. This weekend, we talked about, here's what we delivered over the course of the last 6 months, and here's what to expect from us. We had about 100 or so affiliate owners show up for it. Amazing day. Last night, Savan had one of the owners on to give a download. How'd it go? What were the takeaways from it? And Zia, who's the owner of Counterculture CrossFit down in Encinitas, kind of just played back her experience. And she talked about walking out of there with a lot of confidence and optimism in the work that's been happening in the path forward. And she told the story of an owner. I didn't even know this. I learned this last night. An owner who walked into this summit intent on selling her affiliate and walked out saying, I'm really fired up with what's to come, and I'm not selling, I'm sticking around. And that, for me, there wasn't one single thing that made all that possible. That was all the work that's been happening across every facet of our team to deliver real meaningful value to affiliates in the broader community. So that was a really cool, watching that, I felt really proud of the work that the team has done this year. What am I most excited about? Gosh, there is a lot that I'm excited about. I'd say we are, on the team front, we've been working really hard. I touched on before, like, we've had a lot of work to do to get the team to a place where, I think when I started, we had a collection of like extraordinary individuals, but we were not an extraordinary team yet. We were not all hyper aligned, supporting each other, working together, and we're getting closer to that. And this will sound a little cliched, but like all the stuff that I talked about, raising the bar, doing a better job, executing better, communicating better, the foundation for all of that is the team. And I'm feeling really excited about the progress that we've made on that front. We've got a few more things in front of us. We've got some new leaders joining the team, but I'm really excited about what that means for the community and the growth that we're going to see.
And the last one, this one's let's see. All right. In a broad sense, what is going on with CrossFit Health? This is from Caitlin, and specifically incorporating other health professionals, especially dietitians. And is there any movement or any plans for that moving forward?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've done with CrossFit Health, so CrossFit Health for a long time, I'd say operated as a entity in parallel to a lot of the work that we did. To some extent, a supporting brand to the overall CrossFit brand. We had separate channels, we had separate initiatives, a bunch of incredible and really important work there. Nicole Carroll's been working on our overall brand strategy. And one of the things that we're working on is, look, all the work that we're doing around CrossFit Health is in service of our overall brand and where we're going. And so one of the things that we're doing is working to kind of pull in all the work we're doing there from a content perspective, from a community engagement perspective, to support the overall work we're doing to shape the brand. We continue to run education, our L1s and L2s for healthcare providers. We've done that work. We are looking at some things that we can do around capturing data. We're looking at some things that we can do to enable actually providers as part of that network to organize and work together. And so those are some of the things that we've been working on.
Great. Listen, Don, we've taken up enough of your time. We always appreciate you coming on here, appreciate your candor and your willingness to, answer questions and take the bullets up there. And, I think every time that I talk to you, and it's been a handful of times, I always leave more optimistic. And, looking forward to seeing Madison, and, hopefully there are good things on the horizon.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for the time. It's really good to see you guys, and fired up to see you in a couple weeks in Madison.